Imagine living in a world where every choice you made, every word you spoke, and even the clothes you wore could decide whether you lived or died. Picture yourself walking through a crowded street in ancient China, the air thick with incense and whispers, where the eyes of officials followed your every step. You hear the sound of a drum in the distance. Someone has been accused of breaking a law. But this isn't just theft or murder. The man is guilty of something far stranger. His crime? Wearing clothes reserved for the emperor. Within hours, he will be dragged before the court, humiliated, and likely executed. In this world, survival didn't just mean following obvious rules. It meant navigating bizarre, often terrifying laws that governed every breath of life. Today, we're diving into the weirdest laws of ancient China. Rules so unusual, so unthinkable, that they sound like the plot of a psychological thriller. But make no mistake, they were very real, and for those who lived under them, the consequences were deadly. Let's start with a law that seems almost unbelievable: the forbidden colors of clothing. In ancient China, especially during the Ming and Tang dynasties, strict clothing regulations existed under what was known as the sumptuary laws. These dictated what colors and fabrics different classes of people could wear. The emperor alone had the right to wear yellow, symbolizing his connection to the divine mandate of heaven. If a commoner was caught wearing yellow robes, it wasn't just seen as bad fashion. It was an act of treason, implying you were claiming imperial authority. Punishment ranged from exile to execution. Imagine putting on the wrong robe in the morning and realizing it might cost you your life. But clothing wasn't the only bizarre aspect. Another law targeted sound itself. During the Han Dynasty, whistling at night was forbidden. People believed whistling after dark attracted ghosts and evil spirits. But the superstition wasn't just folklore, it was codified into law. Violators could be punished by officials because disturbing the peace at night was considered not just disruptive, but spiritually dangerous. In a society where ancestors and spirits guided daily life, even a harmless whistle could mark you as reckless, inviting disaster upon the whole community. Then there were the laws surrounding work and corruption. One of the strangest and most brutal was the punishment for dishonest government officials. While corruption laws existed everywhere, in China, they took a creative and terrifying turn. Under certain dynasties, if an official was found guilty of serious corruption, not only could he be executed, but his body would be publicly mutilated and displayed as a warning. In the Ming Dynasty, one method was known as lingqi, or death by 1,000 cuts. But the plot twist? Sometimes, if the corruption was extreme, the law demanded punishment of the official's entire family. Wives, children, even cousins could be executed or enslaved. Justice was not just personal. It was collective, meant to erase corruption from the bloodline itself. But not all laws were bloody. Some were downright strange in their obsession with control. Take the law against private iron smelting during the Han Dynasty. At first glance, it seems harmless. Why would smelting iron in your backyard matter? But the emperor feared that allowing private individuals to make their own weapons could lead to rebellion. So, private smelting was outlawed, punishable by death. Entire villages were destroyed if suspected of secretly forging blades. It wasn't just about weapons, it was about monopoly. The emperor controlled every nail, every tool, every piece of iron in the kingdom. Imagine being executed for making a cooking pot. Another law reveals just how deeply the government tried to control daily life. During the Qin dynasty, the infamous Emperor Qin Shi Huang, known for unifying China and building the first version of the Great Wall, introduced the law of book burning. He feared that rival philosophies, Confucian teachings, historical records, poetry would undermine his authority. So he ordered all books not aligned with his legalist ideology to be destroyed. Scholars who resisted were buried alive. It wasn't just censorship, it was a war on memory itself. Knowledge was dangerous, and keeping a scroll hidden under your bed could mean death. But perhaps the strangest law of all was tied to family and obedience. In Confucian philosophy, filial piety, the respect and obedience owed to parents, was the highest virtue. The law reflected this. During the Tang Dynasty, there were legal codes that punished children more severely if they disobeyed their parents than if they disobeyed the emperor. If a son raised his hand against his father, he could face execution. If he insulted his parents, he might be beaten publicly. In contrast, if a parent killed their child, the punishment could be minimal. The law saw family hierarchy as sacred, untouchable, and absolute. It flipped modern ideas of justice upside down. And just when you think it couldn't get stranger, there were laws concerning animals. In certain dynasties, killing imperial animals, like the emperor's horses, hunting falcons, or sacred deer, was treated as a capital offense. Accidentally injuring one could condemn you to death. The life of a beast in service to the emperor was considered more valuable than that of a farmer. But the psychological thriller of ancient Chinese law doesn't stop at punishment. It extends to surveillance. Imagine living in a village where every neighbor was legally required to report your crimes. If they failed, they could be punished alongside you. This was part of a system known as collective responsibility. Under the Qin dynasty, households of 5 were grouped together into mutual responsibility units. If one person committed a crime, the others had to report him or face punishment themselves. Trust dissolved. Suspicion became law. Your neighbor's secret could kill you. So what do these strange laws reveal? They weren't random. Each bizarre rule, whether banning yellow robes, outlawing whistling, or demanding loyalty to parents, was about power. They reinforced control, hierarchy, and obedience in a vast empire where rebellion was always a risk. And while they may seem weird to us, to the people who lived under them, they were deadly serious. Think about it. In a society where stepping out of line by the smallest margin could mean execution, people became masters of caution. They learned to read faces, to stay silent when necessary, to blend into the crowd. These laws didn't just shape behavior, they shaped psychology. Fear was the emperor's strongest weapon. The unpredictability of punishment kept everyone in check. That's the real thriller. The realization that every citizen lived inside a game of survival, where the rules were strange, shifting, and merciless. And yet, within this system, there are cracks. Secret rebels kept banned books hidden, passing them down in whispers. Villagers quietly forged tools despite the laws. Children sometimes defied their parents, choosing freedom over obedience. In every empire, even one bound by the strangest laws, there were always those who resisted. So, the next time you complain about a strange modern law, like jaywalking fines or taxes on unusual things, remember that in ancient China, a whistle at night, a robe the wrong color, or a hidden book could have ended your life. Their world was stranger, harsher, and far more terrifying than we can imagine.